Thank you all for joining today. You all know me, I'm Felicia Saracino. I am the Director of Development here at the Arlington of Naples. And today we're going to be talking about helping caregivers through improv. And we have two very special guests with us today. So today is really part one of part two. So tomorrow is part two if you'd like to join. Just email me and let me know and I can send you that information as well. But I have Craig Price, and he's the Director of Community Education and Wellness from the Naples Players. And then I have Sue Ryan. She is a speaker, author, coach, and caregiver. So thank you both for joining me today, and I'm going to let you take it from here.
Thank you, Felicia. Thanks for having us. So, hey, how's it going, everybody? How you doing? We kind of talked just a little bit in the beginning. It's great to see you. Craig Price, Director of Community Education and Wellness, which is kind of a mouthful for a title. The Naples Players is where I teach, and that's where our wellness program is. And what that really means is that I go out into the community and do things like this, where we talk about how theater and the arts can help in our wellness journey. And that is for lots of different communities, but in particular this community. And all of my background and how I met Sue was basically through my own caregiver journey as well. So it's been an interesting mix of both my love for the theater and improvisation, which I started doing at the Second City in Chicago 30 years ago. And I've come full circle because now my life incorporates kids with autism that I teach improv for, and adults with memory issues, as well as their care partners. And so we've been able to adapt all these improv games for real life situations, but they all incorporate the same basic philosophies of any improv game or any improv class that you've ever taken or haven't taken. Will always talk about the same basic philosophies of yes and, being present in the moment, ready to adapt. And what that basically means for us is that we're going to be ready to adapt for any life situation. We're going to use these improv games to help us adapt for any life situation and use every interaction we have with our loved one who has memory issues as another scene. It's a whole nother scene. And Sue will talk a little bit more about her journey, but it's been a great pleasure to start working together with Sue and working together with other people like the Arlington, where I'm actually teaching an improv class called Laugh Online every Thursday for the residents in the independent living community. And so we have about 5 individuals that we're forming our own little improv group for the residents of the Arlington. So it's been a lot of fun and a great journey for me as well. Sue?
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. I am so glad you're here. As they said, my name is Sue Ryan, and I have been in roles of caregiving for almost 35 years now. And it has been with different family members and loved ones. I call them family. And I've learned a lot of things. I've been living parallel lives, my professional life, as well as my life in the roles of caregiving. My most recent role in caregiving is that of my beloved husband, Jack, who is a resident in the My Tapestry Memory Care Unit there at the Arlington. And it's been a wonderful journey for us having him there. We started our journey there by taking him into a day program. And while he couldn't remember what he was doing, he always came out with a smile on his face. And I had taken him to other daycare programs, and he was not a happy camper. So they, they kind of got aligned. The journey that I have taken in caregiving and kind of where this has all moved is that as professionally as a speaker and as a coach, I expanded this into the caregiving role. I wrote a book called Our Journey of Love, 5 Steps to Navigate Your Caregiving Journey, and I now speak on that. And I continue to gather content for my caregiving journey because Jack was diagnosed formally diagnosed at the beginning of 2014. So this year We navigated the pandemic together. We navigated COVID-19, and we've navigated the transitions in his health. And one of the things that's been really, really helpful is the work that we have done with Craig and his team who've come in. And what's been so great about it is that we're able to connect with our loved ones at a level they still have access to. And the thing that I'm excited about what we're doing today and tomorrow is that as my role in caregiving transitioned, when I would see that my loved one was transitioning, it was different things for me to learn, different things for me to consider, different things for me to be aware of. And often the concept of an improv to let me kind of step into the role or something or become aware, those have been very, very helpful. So all of that kind of intersection. Today, what we're going to do is, the format will be the same today and tomorrow. Craig and I put together a number of different segments that we're going to talk about that go from before there's actually been a diagnosis, when you're not really sure there is going to be one, you're just not, something just doesn't seem right, all the way to some of the later stages. And it also includes us caring for ourselves. And so what we're doing is we're going to talk about what that is in our lives, and then also do an improv and talk about the purpose of that improv and how it helps us and how it helps us in our relationship with our caregiver. And as we're doing this, if you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask while we're doing it, or if you'd feel more comfortable, you can wait till the end and we'll save time at the end. This is really for you, and we're just sharing our experiences that we've been learning over the years with you to try to help you. So does anybody have any questions before we get started? Any
no.
other questions? You good? Okay. What we're going to, the first segment that we're going to talk about is kind of pre-diagnosis, that, you know, we don't know if there's been a diagnosis or if there's really a neurocognitive disorder. We don't know what's really going on, but we sense something's not quite right. And so what we're going to be talking about is, we're aware there may be some other considerations. We're just not sure exactly what it is. You know, like we're making excuses for ourselves and we're not sure what the problem is, or we're suspicious, but we're kind of fearful. We're not really sure what we want to do or what we should do. We don't necessarily know who to reach out to, and we think there's a problem. So we're coming to some adjustments in our life, as well as looking at our loved one and where they are. And the net of what it is we just don't have a right relationship with what's going on. Can any of you relate to that in your lives with your loved ones? Yeah. So Craig, would you talk a little bit about the improv that you've put together that's going to help us with that?
Yeah, all of these games, like I mentioned before, we've adapted for these real life situations in your caregiving journey. So one of the favorite games, you know, that I've played with a lot of improv classes that I've taught in the past is called Everybody Go. And Everybody Go is an opportunity to let us get to know each other a little bit as a group, whoever is in the class, but also we've tailored it to kind of be a sleuth to find out what exactly is going on with your loved one, if anything, and maybe give you some ways to communicate with them. The heightened listening is such an important thing in improv. Whenever we walk out on stage in improvisation, oftentimes, if you guys have seen improv, which I'm sure most of you or all of you have seen an improv show where they walk out on stage and they say, hey, everybody, I need a suggestion of a location. And that may be all they start with is a location. And the rest of it then is all fully improvised, and everybody is basically making it up as they go along. Well, oftentimes life is like that too, where we are just learning in the moment about where our loved one is and meeting them where they're at. So one of these things is about listening for clues, playing to their strengths, and then also making sure that we find areas that they may be struggling in. And so, again, all these improv games, the same philosophies that we use in improvisation. Yes, and being ready to adapt at any moment, and being present in the moment is always so important in all these exercises. So this is called Everybody Who goes like this. Basically, we're going to ask some basic questions, and kind of we start out with 2 or 3 ways to communicate. We use the thumbs up for yes, and this is especially good for Zoom and when you're communicating with someone with memory issues. You go thumbs up for yes. So everybody show me a thumbs up for yes. And in Zoom, we have to show it in our camera. That's the funny thing. I could be giving you the thumbs up now and you would never know it. So I go thumbs up for yes, thumbs sideways for maybe or I don't know, and thumbs down for a hard no, solid no. All right. So let's try a couple of practice ones before we get into the sleuthing and adapting this for real life situations. So just for this group here, thumbs up for, let's see, everybody who likes pizza. All right. Oh, look at that.
Hey, Craig, I'm going to interrupt for a second. Leslie, if you want to participate in this, if you want to just comment in the chat, if you feel like that, you could be doing like, a U for thumbs up, or an M for maybe, or a D for down.
Oh, I like that. I like that, Sue. See,
that way you can be, that way you can, because I know you got your thumbs up or to the side or down. We just can't see it, but there's more than one way to communicate. Now, actually, what we just did is a very big part of what we end up adapting a lot as we go through the journey. What doesn't seem to work now, you get really quick at how can we still have the same outcome and a positive experience and adapt and do it a different way.
Okay.
And like Sue mentioned too, it takes a lot of practice. It doesn't come naturally all the time, this adapting and being present in the moment and changing on a dime. Like Sue just mentioned, she came up with a great idea instantly for how we would adapt this for anyone who's not on the camera. So that's great. And that's over many years of practice, but that's what these games are for. The more we play these games together with each other in these classes, as well as in with our loved one in real life, we get better at it. So we'll do the thumbs up for pizza. I think I got all thumbs up on pizza. Everybody who likes pizza.
Yep.
All right, great. And so, and then it was Leslie who said, yeah, I heard her say yeah on that.
Yep.
That's good. So she's giving us a verbal answer. That's excellent. And if your loved one can't give the answer, they might type the M in the chat for maybe, the Y in the chat for yeah, or the N in the chat for no, or down. Okay, so another one that everybody can answer. Now this one, there might be some yeses and some nos in this one. So everyone who has a pet.
Yes.
No.
Oh, okay, we have a couple of no's. Now hopefully we don't have any maybes. That would be bad if you did not know if you had a pet or not. Okay, good. So now we kind of adapt it for our situation here, our real life situation. We listen for clues. And we play to our partner's strengths or our loved one who we're talking about, who has memory issues. Like, for example, my stepmother, we started noticing things about grandma. Grandma by the beach, as my kids called her, started ending up at the wrong movie theater, and we didn't know why. Or she wasn't really connecting with the kids, and we didn't know why. And so these kind of questions and these kind of games would have helped us diagnose that, or at least get some clues. So now let's try, we're going to work with the senses, because when we're talking about this improv exercise and tailoring it towards someone with memory issues, the senses become so important, and they start getting a little funky at times, and maybe we don't connect with them. Auditory processing, the verbal processing, all become an issue for us when we are up against certain memory issues. So one way that we tweaked this exercise for sight was a question like this. Everybody who sees shapes in clouds.
Yep.
Okay, great. Now you might get some maybes on that. Like someone may not understand exactly what you're talking about. And that might lead you to sleuth a little bit more, as Sue was giving me this great term of sleuthing. So we might talk about one-on-one with our loved one if we're having troubles with sight, or we might ask them to go into the pantry and get a particular item. And so I was thinking about what my wife might ask me to go get. And if she asked me to go into the pantry and get a can of green beans, I might not have any idea where she keeps those green beans. So I might want to keep it more simple, like go into the pantry and get us a gallon of milk.
Well, and Craig, kind of to complement what that is on the, with my journey with my husband, I didn't use this improv game, but I did the same kind of a thing in my sleuthing. And it was that he began to lose the connection between, for example, a can of green beans and what they were. And so as well, we're going to do, like we did the thing like from a site, well, do you see shapes in clouds? One of the ways that you can kind of be a sleuth to what your loved one may have some challenges with is ask them, for example, like go to the pantry and get green beans and see if they can connect with a can of green beans, or ask them to go get something else that they would look at and connect to, and just make sure there are. So for my husband, there were areas where he, until just recently, he was sharp as a tack. And then there were other areas where he lost the capacity to connect. So as you're sleuthing throughout the journey, do things where you're able to, the reason that I do that is so I can see where he is in his progression. So while this may seem like a simple exercise, it's very insightful for you to understand what your care receiver still has access to. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh. There we go. Or we can do that.
We can do that.
Or
yeah.
no.
All right. So Craig, you had another one. What was the one after sight?
Sound. Oh. So everybody who likes classical music.
Yep.
All right. And do we get Leslie? Do we get a yes from you?
Yep.
Okay,
yes,
great. And I saw a maybe from Sue. Maybe some classical music, maybe not. That's good. So, and then one-on-one, kind of sleuthing, thinking about playing to the strengths of your loved one and where you might want to do some investigation. There might be sounds within the house, the auditory processing that we talked about earlier. We might have trouble connecting to what those sounds are. For example, the cell phone, the doorbell, and the alarm clock might all sound like the same thing. We might not be able to tell the difference between that. So doing this same exercise with your loved one, asking them, if you play a sound, like on your cell phone, play the ringer and ask them to identify what that sound is. Or
Jack, actually, we have the Ring doorbell. And because that's short-term memory for him, we didn't have a Ring doorbell for many years. We had only had the Ring doorbell for maybe three years. Yeah. And he would hear the ring and he didn't know what it was. So that meant that parts of his short-term memory were leaving. And so different kinds of sounds, if there are sounds that, like with us with the Ring doorbell, that was definitely a short-term memory thing, I was able to then determine that his short-term memory was impacted.
Yeah. So the clues, like we mentioned earlier, being a sleuth, using your best detective skills, helping you there. Then we talked about another sense, smell. And let's see, for everyone who likes the smell of flowers.
Okay.
All right, that's a yes for Leslie. And Allison, we got to vote yes. All right, good deal. And we have Irene. I keep leaving out Irene. I want to make sure I get you in there. Excellent,
She gave you
Irene.
2 thumbs up. There you go.
Yeah, 2 thumbs up. Now, some people might be a maybe or a no because they're allergic. So it might take a little more investigation. But smell then is another one that we can play with, and that's a fun one to do at home, where one-on-one with your loved one, you could actually use like the smell of coffee. If you have a cup of coffee or fresh ground coffee beans, and you could say, close your eyes or cover your eyes, and you put the coffee in front of your loved one, have them smell, and tell you what that is. Okay, it might be really obvious to them. We might take something a little different. Perfume. Put that out there. Smell that. And again, their eyes are covered, and you're playing a fun game at home to kind of find out if there's any issues there for smell.
And kind of on the example of that, one of the things that you want to make sure is that, like if your partner might say, well, I don't want to play that game, or, or I don't want to, you can do it with both of them. And you can say, hey, honey, somebody was telling me they did this and it was a whole lot of fun. Why don't we do this? And you can get different things out on the table and, some things that they could, so you're doing the same thing with them and you come up with what it is, but you may have a couple things that weren't on the table that you put in there so that it's not something that they actually saw, just to kind of check. And so they're just small ways to notice what they still have connection with and what they may not have connection with. And on the flowers, with the smell of it, you can also then say, oh my gracious, that's such a beautiful, maybe it's a daisy, and you can say, oh, that's such a beautiful rose, and see if they correct you.
Absolutely.
Like so again, sleuthing in different ways, you can combine the senses if you want to as well.
One of the things I noticed too with my stepmother and also my stepdad, who both have dementia, totally different types of dementia. One has frontal temporal, another type of dementia for my stepdad. And their language centers were affected so differently. So accessing the word was very difficult for my mom. She had a hard time connecting to the word. What is that smell? I know what that smell is. I drink it in the morning. It makes me feel a little more peppy. She could describe it, but she wouldn't remember the word coffee. And so these are great clues that Sue is talking about along her journey. Then we had one last one where we have two more senses. We don't want to forget all the 5 senses. We did one for taste. Everybody who likes spicy food.
Yay!
Well, we got an enthusiastic thumbs up for spicy food. What about Felicia in the office there? Did we get thumbs up for spicy food from both of you? Oh, wow. All right. So now we know what's being served in the commissary there at the Arlington. Excellent. All right. So spicy food was a thumbs up, but then taste might be one-on-one, something fun that you can do with your loved one. Have them taste something blindfolded, tell you what it is, be able to describe it. Peanut butter versus jelly. Hopefully they're not allergic to nuts, but that is another way that you can do a fun little tasting thing. Again, sometimes the words might be difficult accessing the language, but they can describe what it is.
So, hey, Craig, to your point, if on the aphasia part you were talking about, that was something, my dad also had dementia before my husband. So my dad also had the aphasia where he could see it and he knew that there was a word. This is something that's really, really helpful for you as you are navigating the journey. One of the things with my dad in the very beginning, and this goes back to the sleuth, because we didn't recognize this in the beginning, is it's kind of the making excuses for it, or they, well, right there kind of a thing. And he would kind of brush it off or do something. And we didn't notice that he didn't have access to the word until it got farther progressed. And so if you notice any difference in patterns, because a lot of these lessons I learned, they were like repurposed lessons. I learned them later. I didn't know to observe them at the time. I didn't know what they were or what they were indicating. And so my dad had the early signs of aphasia for a period of time before we actually knew that was what it is. And so for you, if that's something you want to be checking on, it's really great to have them, like you can say, you know, like maybe let's write out what we're going to have and have them use the words, or, you know, find ways to have them see what their connection with the words is. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Kinda.
Okay, Leslie, go ahead, ask.
No, I'm listening. I'm just trying to figure it out.
Okay. Well, jot it down, and if you've got questions, we can certainly go through some more details or answer any other questions, okay?
Okay.
All right. So Craig, back to you.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. The aphasia is something that my mom had a problem with from the beginning, and we noticed because she was, like all the women in our family, very much a talker. So when she stopped being able to find the word, I don't think we made excuses for it, but we would find the word for her. And we knew what she was trying to say, and it would get frustrating for her. And so then we would just say it. And looking back, the way Sue was talking about when you learn these things as you've gone along, I don't know whether or not that was a positive thing, something that we should do, or whether or not you should just let someone keep struggling until they finally just say, okay, fine, I realize I can't find the word. So I just don't know what the best route is with aphasia.
I think Sue's better qualified to answer that question because we discussed this very thing. And I will tell you, one of the things that she told me that was really valuable is she wrote a lot of this stuff down and a sleuthing journal that she kept throughout her caregiving journey. But we talked about this very thing, Sue, the other night. What was your advice for that?
So they're kind of two different things. One of them we're going to get to in one of the exercises we're specifically going to get to, which is meeting them where they're at. In the case of this, with the aphasia, what we learned is, and I applied this to my husband, Jack. So while he was symptomatically different than the technical aphasia, the symptoms of aphasia, of the progression of the disease, is that you lose connection with words ultimately. So with my dad, once we realized this was part of it, what we learned is that we gave him long enough to try to figure it out until he got to where he figured out he couldn't figure it out. Then we helped him.
Okay.
So what we learned, and we went to support meetings, caregiving support meetings. There's the Alzheimer's Association, there's the Alzheimer's Support Network. There are a lot of different places where you can get support. What we learned is that we want them to have to do everything they can to access their connection in any way they can. And then if they can't get it, then we help them. Now, a really good example with that, let's go back to coffee, where you've got a cup of coffee. Coffee is almost always associated with taste and smell, right? So while my dad may not have remembered this was a cup of coffee to look at it. If you said, what's that? He may not have remembered that, but you could say, oh my gracious, that just smells so good. Daddy, what does that smell like to you? And he might have access to say it smells like coffee. Mm-hmm. And so in your sleuthing, what you may want to try to do, if there's a challenge in the word, is to use another sense to try to allow them to have access to it.
Okay, that's a good point. Good point. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, I think we're moving on to the last sense, feel. And a very specific feeling that we came up with that you might say, everybody who likes the feeling of shag carpet, good old 70s style shag carpet.
Yuck.
See, now we got some differencing of opinion. Good. That's the beauty of Everybody Who. For a group, we can always find out where everybody's at on that one. That's great. So now if we want to try that a little bit more one-on-one for our loved one, we can do again the closing of the eyes game where we did for the taste and the smell, and a blindfold or closing of the eyes and feel this. And you might put out a scarf, whether that be a wool scarf or a silk scarf, and ask your loved one to describe what that is, what fabric that is. How does it feel? Is it rough? We have, in my caregiving journey, both of my kids have sensory processing disorder. So it has been a challenge for them all of their lives. And we didn't know this until we went to an occupational therapist and we got this diagnosed that tags in the back of the shirt can present and prevent them from learning, as I'm moving my tag right now. They have such a thing as their sensory processing disorder could prevent them from paying attention in school because their tags bothering them so much in the back of their shirt. We've had to add sensory things to the tables in our house now because they're at home learning virtually. But at school, in their learning plans, we were able to add Velcro to the bottom of the table or different fabrics for sensory processing and sensory input. But this became really obvious with my mom in her dementia, that she was losing her sense. She loved lotions and things, but they started to really bother her. So she would start dumping her lotion into her purse. And we could not understand why. Why is grandma trashing all her purses with lotion? And we figured out that she didn't want it anymore. She doesn't want it in her purse. She doesn't want that lotion around because it started bothering her. And it could have been the smell, could have been the taste, or could have been the feel. But now, it was that sleuthing that Sue talked about, and writing it down, and then, talking about it in support groups, like Sue mentioned, was really valuable for my dad. It really helped him to figure out what was going on.
And Craig, to your point, you can do the sleuthing for this one especially. They don't even have to have their eyes covered. You can ask them to describe it. So, for example, Craig, as you were talking about with your stepmom, you could have, if you had suspected lotion might be an issue, if she was dumping her lotion, one of the things that they could have done is say, Grandma, here, put some of this on your fingers and tell us, how does it feel? And she would have had a really strong reaction. Mm-hmm. When they begin to lose the connection with the explanation or the understanding of it, if you can tie them to it in some way, then you can understand it better. And I've done that with Jack as I've noticed things that he stepped away from doing that he used to do. I've tried to connect with what his issue with it is because he can't tell me. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm.
It makes total sense because that reaction that you just demonstrated there, Sue, was absolutely the things we started noticing, where she would recoil from certain objects and things that she used to love. And we could not figure out why.
And that's part of what it is it changes. I think this might be a really good point, Craig, to make a comment about rational mind, that what we do in our rational minds is we have a vision. You have a vision of your stepmother, Craig, what she loved. She loved the lotion. And I had a vision of my husband and what he loved to do, and my daddy and what he loved to do. And as the disease progresses, the more we can step away from our vision of them, our rational mind of this is what they used to like, and so this is what they will like, and that we can stay present to them. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment. The more we can let go of our rational, they're going to do this if we do this, the easier it's going to be for us to step into serving them better. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Because you guys thought, like with the thing, there were things that we did with my dad, and that Craig, you thought, grandma loves the lotion. We'll give her more lotion. So you don't understand it. Well, but she always loved lotion. And so in the sleuthing of it, we can kind of see the things that they're not really connecting with anymore. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't make rational sense because they always loved it, but now they don't.
Mm-hmm. So in wrapping up the exercise, a couple of things that we just discussed and learned about our loved one is that peace of mind that Sue just described. Having that rational mind and meeting them where they're at really helps us to do the sleuthing. And at that point, what do we do about it? What do we do about, something's not right, and I need to do more research. That was something that my dad started to finally do. Like, what's going on here? He got on the internet and he got all kinds of wacky answers. But once he went to an Alzheimer's support network and group, then he got real answers from real people who have been through this, like Sue, who could tell you, or a facility like the Arlington, who care for people with memory loss, who could tell my dad exactly what was going on. It really helped him. And then the other thing is something, once he realized something was not right, he needed to talk. And he needed to talk to someone about how to talk to his wife about it. And that was a valuable lesson. And it really took professionals to talk with him about how to talk about it. So Sue, that moves us on to segment 2.
All right. So one of the things that Craig and I talked about before we go into this, I started with, as we were just talking a few minutes ago, and it's something that I have learned through my caregiving journeys, and I call it massive acceptance and radical presence. And what that means, and the story that I learned, I'll tell it very, very quickly, is as my dad's journey was progressing and I was caring for him, he decided it was time to walk the dog one evening. It was dusk. It's that Florida grass. He and my stepmother's home, we had kind of a hill down to the area. So he has taken the dog out where he knows to take the dog out. And my dad, for years, taught me about safety and things to do and all this. So I'm thinking, dusk, rough grass, all these things, the dog, everything. That's not safe. Daddy, let's go over this way. No, he wants to go this way. I'm trying harder to get him to go this way. He's getting more agitated because he wants to go this way. I had accepted that he had a type of dementia, but I had not massively accepted it. And because I hadn't massively accepted it, while I was present to the fact he was trying to go take the dog and all the dangers and stuff, I wasn't radically present to see that he had no capacity to think about going over there because this is all he had capacity for. Once I massively accepted it and I had radical presence, what I realized I would have done in that situation is I would have stayed a very calming presence for my dad. I would have realized that what I need to do is to get on the right-hand side of him where the dog leash was, and I needed to be a few steps ahead of him. So if the dog started to pull away, I could grab the leash. And if Daddy started to tumble, I could grab him. And otherwise, we would navigate down there. So the difference of what we're going to be talking about from all of these things is when you accept something in its absolute entirely, you are not remembering back to what it used to be and wishing it was that way. And you're not being a storyteller trying to write the future of what might happen. When you accept it completely and you are absolutely, fully, radically present to it, you serve yourself and you serve your care receiver much more successfully. So the next exercise we're going to go through is one where our loved one has already been diagnosed with some kind of neurocognitive disorder, a type of dementia. Is everybody good with that, with massive acceptance and radical presence?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Good. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, Greg, you go.
So we want to give everybody the opportunity for questions too. If you have questions that maybe you want to ask later or you want to ask privately, you can always put them in the chat, or we can connect up later. You can connect up with Felicia, like she mentioned, and send her an email, but also you're welcome to ask at any point. Are there any questions really before we move on to the next section?
Craig, being respectful of the time, why don't we do segment 3?
Segment 3. Let's do segment 3. Absolutely. All right. So segment 3 is changing emotions. Well, I have a visitor here. Hi.
Mom, I don't know where Mom is.
Right out there. There's Mom right out there. Radically. There you go. Say hello to Antonio.
Hi, Antonio.
So we have, we can move on to segment 3, which is this changing emotions game. And it started out when I started doing improv as a game called Bell Changes. And when the bell rings, we change something in the scene. In this particular case, we're going to change emotions. Because oftentimes in real life, whether we're dealing with somebody with memory loss or maybe even yourself, emotions change dramatically. And we use the situation like Publix, for example, as a place. So we ask the audience for a location, they yell out Publix, and we go about our shopping trip with our partner on stage, grabbing objects. During the course of our shopping trip, the bell's gonna ring, and we're gonna have to change our emotions. As the exercise we're gonna demonstrate, Sue is going to be the person in the scene who doesn't change her emotions. She's gonna adapt to whatever I do, and she's gonna meet me where I'm at. She's gonna learn to deflect from this whole thing and get me back to neutral as we move forward in a productive way. Using.
If any of you guys, as you're watching this, we're going to do it again. And if any of you are comfortable, we'll have you play my role.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, it's all about practicing. It's that massive acceptance, radical presence, which is exactly what I learned in improv, of being in the moment and accepting. Yes. And it is the same philosophy. So what we did is adapt this game for this situation. The classic situation of being in Publix with your loved one, and emotional changes happen so quickly and so dramatically. So we'll act that out. So let's see. All right, Sue, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. We're in Publix and begin.
Oh my gracious, honey. I think we need to get some oranges. Could you please look and see if you see any oranges?
Oh, I love oranges. We have oranges every morning together. I would love to have some oranges.
They're
Let's
so
see.
good, aren't they?
Matt, I can't find the oranges anywhere. Where are the oranges?
Oranges? Oh, honey, oranges. I love oranges. Do you love the taste of oranges?
Oh, I love the taste of oranges. I love the taste of oranges.
How do you like your oranges the best? Do you like your oranges when you're having orange juice, or would you rather have them sliced?
Calm. Oh, I love them when you slice them for me. Every morning when we take the oranges and we put them in our mouth and we do that funny orange smile. It's so funny. I love when we do that.
Oh, honey, that's great. Let's pick out a few oranges so we can have them for breakfast.
Okay, here they are. Let's put them in the basket.
Now, what we just did very quickly, as you can see, I mean, honestly, I would do this with my husband. It would be just like that, because there are things they have access to. Have any of you had those experiences where just all of a sudden they just shift? And so it is our ability to meet them where they're at and then find a way to deflect them until they're able to come back. Does that make sense to everybody? Mm-hmm. Would any of you like to practice with that, or have any of you done that before? Have you gone through deflection? Yeah, Irene?
I actually learned a lot about deflection from my mom's nurse, Marcia, that's on her hall in skilled nursing. And my mom, on a dime, she doesn't, not really a lot of communications, some single words, that's about it. But she can be, happy just listening to us talk and visiting and whatever. And then, like, on a dime, something will irritate her. And it mostly irritates her because she can't share with us something she wants to share with us, and she has so much to say that she starts rambling about something, and the words just don't come out clearly, and then she gets more upset because you're not following what she's saying. You can't understand it. She thinks she's speaking just clear as day. And I watched Marcia do it one time, and it's been just a godsend. She walked in, and my mom was so upset, and I was like, I don't understand. She was so happy 2 seconds ago. And Marcia looked at my mom, and she said, oh, I am so sorry. Tell me about that. I am so sorry to hear that. And so she was trying to, even though she didn't understand anything my mom was saying, she was giving my mom, I guess, the platform to say something that was bothering her. And she said, well, you know what? You just put that with me. I will take care of it. She could tell she was upset about something. I will take care of that for you. And my mom just smiled at her, and all of a sudden just calmed right down. And Marcia said, I'll be back and I'll let you know what I did about that. And then she just kind of winked at me and walked. That was exactly what it was. Deflection. But when you can't even have the conversation like you did with Craig with the oranges, and do you want them sliced, do you want them this, it's just so hard, because there's not really even that level of being able to deflect it, and you understand what each other are kind of talking about. Right. You just had to get her over a hump of her not being able to share with you anything she was trying to tell you. So she's wonderful. Yeah, Marcia. That's awesome. She's been my mom's nurse there for a couple years.
Yeah. That's one of the exercises we were actually going to do, which is meeting them where they're at.
Right.
And so what Marcia does, and Craig, we don't even need to do the exercise. We'll just share a couple things on it. What Marcia does is picks up, she accepts your mom exactly where she's at.
Right.
She gets a sense of what's going on. She's really present with her, and she picks up on something, and she moves forward with it.
Right.
And that's one of the things I do with Jack all the time now. Actually, maybe Craig, why don't we do one role play with it?
Okay. Yeah. And
I'll ask you a question, and we'll go back and forth.
Yeah.
Craig, the Philadelphia Phillies, the Atlanta Braves in baseball last night. Did you watch the game?
Oh, my back is really hurting.
Your back? Oh my gracious. You've got the most strong back. It's too bad that it's hurting. Is there anything else you could be doing with your back? Would you like to do some stretches?
Ooh, stretch. That makes my arm tired.
Yeah. Do you like what do you do with your arm, honey? Do you like to write with your right arm?
Oh, yes. I write great letters to my lovely wife.
Now do one, Craig. I want you to try one where it has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Okay.
All right. So what we did there was just very simple. If you pick up on, there's something that they can still connect with, which is great, and you still meet them where they're at. Now, let's say I had said the same thing, the baseball thing last night.
Oh, this cup is broken.
The cup is broken. What's your favorite thing to put in a cup?
Darn dogs.
Let's see. We had 3 dogs. What's your favorite colored dog?
Back in 1972, Barney was a good boy.
Oh, Barney. So you see what we're doing? So it's a combination of these things. It doesn't matter. Like when I have a conversation with Jack, I just want him to be comfortable in the conversation we're having. So I meet him exactly where he's at. We did the same thing with my dad. Whatever my dad had access to talk about is what we talked about. And it would go, but boy, it felt good to them.
Yeah. So you let them lead basically they're kind of leading the conversation, and then you're just trying to keep up and trying to be on board with what they're talking about, adding to it. And then if it goes a different direction, it goes a different direction.
Yes, and we don't say, no, I was talking about baseball, honey. No. Don't you remember? You used to like the Braves or things like that. There's none of that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You're right in the moment. You're listening. You pick up on any word that you can. and you just go with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah, I think I agree with you completely. And it really takes a lot of learning to realize that's the best direction to that's the best strategy to kind of let them lead the conversation, because it keeps things a little more mellow. Because like when he said something about his back was hurting, obviously he wasn't really picking up on the fact that you were talking about the Phillies or whatever you were talking about. His back was bothering him. So that was his moment. He was feeling that. And you just have to, as you say, meet them in the moment. And that was what was bothering him at the time. I think
my emotions never changed. I didn't feel, I didn't have sadness because he didn't have access to the words. I didn't, when you've massively accepted this is where they're at and you're so radically present to it, you can pick up on a word that they're connecting with. And so all you are in the moment is being the best partner with them in that conversation and in that moment.
And a good listener. I mean, I think that's what they're looking for, is a good listener, somebody who is following what they're saying because they're making sense to themselves. They just want somebody they want somebody to acknowledge the fact that they have something important to say, and they want to have you participate as much as possible in what they want to talk about.
Yes, and Craig, what are some of the other things that you talk about with it, like that are the purposes of the improvs because what you were saying is really important. The more we could practice this, even before we need to use it with our loved one or while we are, what are some of your suggestions for what people can be doing with that?
Oh my gosh, you just led me right into a nice plug for my classes, Sue. Thank you. Oh boy, I'm going to give you 10%. So that is exactly what she said. Practice is something that I noticed for me and my dad and my wife in our journey with my stepmom and my stepfather in caring for them, is that it took practice. And if we were able to practice outside of there before we went in to visit, we were so much better equipped. I would even have my dad warm up as we were driving to the facility to come see my mom, that he would have to do some warm-up exercises like we did an improv class. And he actually did take a number of my improv classes, and it truly helped him. So we do these classes. They're called LOL, Laugh Online. They're every Thursday night, every Thursday night. And it's only $10 a class. They're online, and it's at naplesplayers.com or .org. naplesplayers.org. Maybe I should let you plug my classes because you have the information for that. So naplesplayers.org, every Thursday night at 6 p.m. It's $10 a class, and it's all online. You can sign up online. And we practice all these games. Now, these games we are doing them for their original intention. Improv, fun, we laugh a lot, we have a good time, but everything you learn in that class, you can take into your real life and use it. And I did want to give Leslie and Allison an opportunity as well to ask any questions or make any comments. If you're going through some of this stuff on your journey as well, to see kind of whether any of this has helped you.
Well, I'm not in that journey, okay? So I don't have that to relate to. I can only relate to my children growing up and the behaviors that my children went through, that abstinence level where you have to deflect like a 4-year-old or that kind of thing brings to mind being in the moment with them without having an altercation at the place you're at, whether it's the supermarket or whether it was in the playground or whatever. So that's my relation right now to this conversation, which hopefully, or not really, take it with me for the future and my encounters with my clients and my caregivers.
Yeah, well, it's all great practice for real life and where you're going to be, and that heightened listening, that being in the moment, being ready for any interaction, using each one of those interactions as a brand new opportunity, kind of like Irene was saying. That is a great lesson to take away from this. Allison, did you have anything that you wanted to add? Not to put you on the spot, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to unmute yourself and go ahead and share with us if you like.
I forgot I was muted. I have a home health agency, so I have many patients, clients who have issues of this nature. And I'm not on the spot every day. The caregivers are, but we've done a lot of training to try to bring people up to speed. This has been fantastic, actually. Every time you are reminded of, don't forget, I actually had a client yesterday who had insisted that I wasn't there, the caregiver related it to me, that the client insisted she needed to cook her Thanksgiving turkey, and she popped it in the oven, and there was no getting her off that track. And the caregiver was calling me desperate, like, what do I do? And I said, you'll just have to, just have to try to.
Let her cook the Thanksgiving turkey.
Yeah.
As long as she's not in danger.
Well, she was eating it raw. Yeah, kind of. But yes. So every day we're challenged. So.
Well, bless you. Thank you for your journey.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Felicia, do you have any other anything you'd like to say in closing?
Sure. Thank you so much for both of you coming here. These are wonderful tips, and I love doing the improv because it does show what does happen on a daily basis for someone who cares for a loved one that has Alzheimer's or dementia. Part of our training, of course, with the dementia and Alzheimer's training is that redirection, living in the moment. And we try and help the families as much as we can, but it's so much more difficult when you are the caregiver and you're that family member that has to go through it because you have those memories of how your loved one was. So living in that radical presence is something that's so important. So thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing us.
Found it very helpful.
Well, Sue, we got to plug tomorrow too. We have some great games coming up tomorrow. If you want to tune in tomorrow, we have a lot of fun to share with you on your caregiving journey or on any journey that you're in. Some of the games that we'll do tomorrow, we have some fun object games that we'll get to work with different objects. I happen to bring one here today that we can turn into lots of different things.
One of them has to do with self-care, because one of the biggest things in our journey, whether you're a professional caregiver or whether you're caregiving with someone you love, is we still have to practice self-care. And especially as we've gone through the pandemic, I think everyone has a heightened awareness of what can happen when we let go of self-care, and it can happen just like that.
Yeah, so taking care of ourselves, and that's going to be the theme of our games tomorrow. We're going to have lots of fun, and there might even be a little dancing involved. I use that term very loosely in my case. It's more like just movement on the screen.
Thank you all for sharing your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks for all your input today. You guys all had great things to share.
Thumbs up.
So much.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.